I dropped the camera stand on my keyboard right when the emergency alert system took effect, so I thought that I did that.
Oh man, crying, dog.
Thanks.
It's been a weekend. It's been a weekend. It's been a weekend.
That birthday hangover finally wear off?
I wish I drank enough to have a hangover. I ain't really drank. I ain't never drank nothing. So I don't know what a hangover feel like. We got a homie Big Rick in the house, so this is gonna be good.
Nice.
Couple people want us to actually go a little further into the gangster rap or the gang banging part of it all. So I brought a G homie from Chicago to really get into the conversation.
There he is.
What's going on, fellas? How y'all feeling?
Rick, what's up with it, man?
You're here. Appreciate you coming through.
I appreciate the love always.
Speeding out mobsters and all that good stuff there.
Yes, sir.
A true understanding of exactly the culture, you know what I mean? At one time in his life, possibly a participant.
Yeah, very active.
You know what I'm saying? So
allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
Allegedly. What's going on, Rick? How you doing, man?
I'm blessed, man. I'm here, man, just putting it together, man, for the big year coming next year, man. Excited really to reach back out to, my old preacher that I made of myself to help the young ones to not do what I did, So I'm just happy about that right now.
So the way we do No Ceilings Live, I know you saw it a couple times. We just really be having conversations. So it ain't like other things where we're gonna be asking you a bunch of stupid questions or like goofball stuff. That ain't really how we do it. We really just get into a conversation and let the conversation flow. You know what I mean? It ain't that type of situation. And probably because how, I drive the car is always going to be like that. You know what I mean? I'm never going to bring somebody on this stream and just ask them a bunch of dumbass questions. But I do want people to be able to ask you things that they want ideas in. And again, we can explore all the thoughts. No Ceilings Live, lunch hour, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon Pacific Standard Time, right here on Digital Soapbox. Click that thumbs up button. Let everybody know you in the house. My brother Peter with me, the homie Rick with me. We do this stream to promote the No Ceilings podcast. Another great episode dropping tomorrow on iHeart Podcasts or Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you get your podcast. The iHeart Podcast is executive produced by Charlemagne the God, the Black Effect Network, and iHeart. And we're going to peel back some more stuff on this gangbanging. I was talking to the homies, right, and it was funny in the group chat. And we were having a conversation about how LA had this era, like in the late 80s, early 90s, even to the mid 90s, where a lot of youngsters start forming their own tagging crews.
Wow.
Like that became the movement, right? You had tagging crews, Nothing But Troubles, We Don't Care, Sex Jerk, all of these different crews that were very much independent of gangs. Like straight tagging crews, dog. And it was like the craziest thing in the world. And that was a big thing. And we were talking about it. And then we talked about how the gangs made them convert into gangs. So like the Troubles converted into its own gang, right? Have you ever seen Back on Fig with T-Rail and them? So Smack is from Troubles.
Okay.
He's from actually that. And before now they're Nothing But Trouble Gangsta Crips or Trouble Gangsta Crips. They were, the name of their crew initially were Troubles. No, Ron, it wasn't party crews. They were tagging crews initially. And you just too young to know this. Shout out to my brother Ronald Green Jr. Shout out to Squish. Thank you, Squish, for moderating. That mean everything. Hussein, Michael Love, Gene, what's up, dog? weren't party crews, they were tagging crews, Ron. You just kind of too young. You didn't know that. I'm giving you information. They were tagging crews. My brother was a part of a tagging crew. But my brother was initially a trouble. A couple of his homeboys was trouble, but when they turned into Crips, they started their own crew called Known for Chaos, A for K. That crew got turned into Home Street Watts. So this was like a standard thing. If you saw the story, it was a brother from 40s, probably within the last 12 months. I can't think of his name. He was on YouTube. He would do content. He would make his own content, and he got killed in Sacramento. You know, they don't even really still know what happened. Before he became from 40s, he was from We Don't Care. So this was a standard thing. Like there were hustling crews, there were tagging crews, and there were some party crews. And that became a thing. So again, S-Bone. There you go. Thank you, Water Boy. Shout out to the homie S-Bone. Rest in peace. I met S and I talked to him and I just forgot his name. Forgive me. Rest in peace, S-Bone. But S-Bone was from a clique. And that became like my generation. A lot of the guys came from crews and they got into gangs. And this was happening all over the county of Los Angeles. It was like a big thing. So the same idea when we was talking about with gangbanging not being bad or good is just what you make it, especially from our look, Rick, like from our lens where the law is not the ultimate status of morality. You know, the legal, that's not the ultimate status of morality. We provide our own. So you could be like a righteous man as a member. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, same. Across the board, our way too. We kind of was the protection for the neighborhood, you know. Like I tell a lot of the young ones, look back into the history of our thing too. It's the same thing. But yeah, we had the ones that was righteous, the ones that wanted politics, the whole nine. So yeah, I was listening to your story last week. I was inspired the same way. When I walked out the door in my neighborhood, the guy that was getting the money, that's why I idolized, but they was part of the thing. You understand what I'm saying? It's just like give a shout out to Bishop Dunn One. When I walked out the house, that's why I seen roll the Rolls Royce down the street and everybody admired, you know, part of the thing.
Just quick question for you. Being that you're a Chicago guy, from my outside, I've never spent a lot of time in Chicago. There was a lot of guys from Chicago and Phoenix when I was down there for whatever reason. But the perception I kind of get is like the old hood is like West Side Chicago, and kind of like South Side Chicago. And I'm more like kind of like the new spot. Do you perceive there to be like, or how do you assess like, is there a generational / geographical manifestation of a cultural difference, and how do you kind of appraise that cultural difference? Between
man, you made my day with that question. As for ones that don't know, I'm from the West Side of Chicago, right? Born, raised, and made. The South Side of Chicago it's like a it's not just like a quiet rival, but it's not a rival. So like your South Sider is gonna be in my era coming up, and I come up in the mid 80s on up, right? Yeah. My era, the South Side was more of the gang banger, meaning like that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna gang bang because our conditions was different on the West Side. It's poverty stricken, just like the South Side, but a little bit more deeper. And on the West Side, the hustlers come from the West Side, so all the influence it comes from the West Side. Far as getting the money, the dressing, the finessing, a lot of it. It was all born on the West Side, but a South Sider wouldn't admit to that. But if you really dig into the history, that's where it comes from. The South Siders kind of, they got their poverty-stricken areas. Then you had the families that was mid-class that had homes and backyards. So on the West Side, the majority, you got homes, but a majority of us grew up in apartments, and a lot of us grew up in single-parent homes, or it was a lot going on, and they had it as well on the South Side. Now I don't want to take that away from them.
Sure.
But the West Side are gonna be more of your hustler, more of you get your money and the fashion and the drugs. Like the good drugs gonna come from my end. South Side is more spacious. South Side are kind of like if you can put LA against Compton. You see, like size wise.
Or the east side of the 110 freeway.
It reminds me of Oakland, like West Oakland, older. East Oakland a little more spread out, little more kind of,
there you
those
go,
parallels
right there.
see similar.
There you go. So like
newer.
The West Side, everybody know everybody. Like it's real. It's not real big, but it's big enough. The South Side is spread it out from the South Side actually started at 26th Street. I'm gonna say that loosely. I'm gonna say 31st. 31st on into the hundreds, right? The wild hundreds.
Okay, yeah.
And they got the biggest space of out the city. Then you still got the north side too, but that had nothing to do with none of what we talking about. But
sure.
But the south side got the space. So you got your Inglewoods, you got your low end, you got your, all your how you guys got the number streets out there like the 40s, 50s. That's all the south side.
So the projects that was in Chicago, were they all over, or were they mainly on the west or the south?
They all over, mainly west side, south side, and then Cabrini Greens, which was Cabrini Greens, and then let me see, Lathorpe Homes. They both was up north, but majority of the boat projects that they talk about is gonna be on the south side and the west side. South side, you had the Robert Taylor's, Stateway Garden, the Calumet Building, what's them down there on 22nd, the Ickies, and then like the west side, you got the Henry Hornets, which we call the Hornets. Then you got what was that on Western right there? Rockwell Garden.
Mm.
You got it's a bunch of buildings out west too, but majority of like the bulk of the projects was off State Street. Like if you go down State Street in Chicago, once you pass downtown area, the projects literally was starting in the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
On down to like 60 what? About 63rd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you had just buildings upon buildings down State Street. Looked it crazy. And man.
This is gonna be a crazy question for you. And it really probably is gonna take a little homework. Maybe you would know, maybe you don't. Where did Black life start in Chicago first?
First, and on the south side of Chicago and Bronzeville, like in that area south.
Yeah.
Okay.
And where did it become biggest, fastest? West side of Chicago.
When did it become biggest?
No, so like in LA specifically, like one of the first places Black people was able to move to was in Venice. Like a lot of people don't know this, but in Venice, in like Ghost Town, that's where Black people in Southern California was one of the first few towns, that part of LA. But on the east side, the low bottoms, what we call the low bottoms, which is, you coming down Central, Avalon, some degree San Pedro and all of that stuff on the east side of the 110 freeway, you know what I mean? That's where Black people started to really colonize the area. You know what I mean? They started being in packs right there. Like my parents is from the low bottoms, mostly all of Black people.
Did everyone's parent that you've ever met go to Fremont High School?
Pretty much everybody.
Every parent I've ever met from over there went to Fremont High School.
Any Black people, and that's what I'm saying. But that's all in the low bottoms.
People at high school that day.
So while, don't get me wrong, one of the earliest places, right, was Venice, where Black people moved to, right. That was one of the earliest places, but where they started to kind of really create communities. You know what I'm saying? Where they started to really create communities was in the low bottoms. And that's why he said everybody went to Fremont and Jeff.
The quick kind of illustration of that, I believe, Denzel Washington and Don Cheadle did that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I thought really depicted that quite well. Because that was the area, the setting. It was kind of like Vernon Centralish area and down from there. Yeah.
And if you hear stories about Black LA in his earliest infancy, like it'll be right there. You know what I mean? Like it'll be right in that area. You know what I mean? You hear all the stories about all of that stuff. So Black people did started to go west later, but I'm trying to figure out in Chicago, like they may have moved to the south, you know what I mean, first, but where did they become like a community at first? Where was the first? The south.
The south side.
Okay.
The south side. So where the projects was at, they put the projects up because majority of that was like when we settled there when we came from down south.
So they built the projects. So black people were the first people in the projects in Chicago? No, they never built projects for us.
They actually built for like veterans and low income.
Military.
Yeah, right. But they built in our area, like they took over our areas and built them. Basically. So we had this expressway in Chicago, a freeway. It's 9094, but it's called a Dan Ryan. That's on the south side. Yeah. So we got two Mayor Daley's that was in power. Both of them was like political crazy, right? So the first Mayor Daley, he's from this area called Bridgeport, which is on the south side of Chicago, which the White Sox play on 35th and the expressway, right? Basically, right? Mm-hmm. So Bridgeport is right behind what used to be Comiskey Park, but now where the White Sox play at, right? So they put the expressway in the middle of that, but the land that they took was the land that we settled in when we first came to Chicago, the blacks.
From the South.
But they did
so what year are we talking about when brothers first came to Chicago from the South or escaped up there?
From the 20s on up, majority of a lot of the people from Chicago are from down south. So
everybody.
It seemed like the Mississippi, just the 55 all the way to the top.
Yeah, Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, all of that.
So you think roughly the 20s?
Yeah, the 1920s. Yeah, because Chicago, as it still is an industrial city still, right? So they came for the jobs. It's like they went to Detroit for the jobs. Same way this way, just like they went to LA to build a better life.
Like St. Louis.
St. Louis, and I got a lot of history with them. I did a lot of things out there. Yeah, so all of them went up north. But majority everybody's from down south.
Shout out to Brother Joe. What's up, Brother Joe? Man, I'm glad you at the lunch table. Shout out to everybody at the lunch table. Make sure y'all hit up the comments. Let us know your thoughts. Get in this conversation while we up here popping it. Click the thumbs up button. Yep, Slauson, Renegades, Businessmen, Gladiators. Yep. And again, we had this conversation, Brother Joe, last week that the Crips are an offshoot of brothers that wanted to be avenues, little kids that wanted to be avenues. Like Raymond Washington and Craig Craddock, they wanted to be avenues. Craig Munson. So if you look up stories when we done with the stream, you know what I mean, and you get back to your desk at your job and you doing your stuff, look up Craig Munson. Craig Munson is, for the most part, one of the main inspirations for Crips. You know what I'm saying? And Raymond and Craig Craddock looked up to him, and they wanted to be avenues, and they were rejected.
Is that Inglewood Avenues, or is that like West Side Avenues further up in LA?
No, so it's East Side, everything on East Side. So
What's Avenues is over there?
No, that's the name of their gang. It wasn't really.
Oh, it just wasn't. It wasn't.
It wasn't like the Ave, like when you say like the 60s or the 40s. No, the Avenues was just the name of their clique. But these are the original black gangs in LA. Again, Chain Gang, which became the Families, Athens Park Boys. You know what that is? Bonniana Boys, Paru Street Boys. Right, those are the original gang. Businessmen. Barry White was a businessman. Avenues, Renegades, Gladiator. They were all the Slauson.
Barry White's a singer.
Yeah, Barry White is a real.
That's the greatest name for his brand image. Like coincidentally, ever.
Barry White is the real deal, bro. Barry White is a businessman, dog. He was a cold player. Feel me? He used to be up at South Park, #1 record in the country, playing niggas in dominoes. My dad told me stories about him. He was something.
Tell me the businessmen were from East Side Wall Street, please. Just to that would have been too good.
No. It wouldn't. One day we need to get into why. I was just telling the homies we need to do a doc on all of these tagging crews, but Lord knows.
Is NR No Respect crew? Malcolm was talking about them over by the Jungles area.
Yep. Same kind of Sex Jerks. It was a lot of. I'm telling the homies we need to do a doc on that culture of LA because it got lost. Everything is just, again, Crips and Bloods overwhelm all the other cultures because it's so marketed to everybody else that, again, it comes across really simple and silly. When I watch it, on television, it's silly. It's almost like, that's how y'all think it is. You know what I'm saying? But I get it. You know what I mean?
That brings up kind of an interesting question, given the dynamic here. What and it's I met his son. I never know him very well, but like obviously a prominent gang in LA is the P Stones. You know, T. Rogers, I think from Chicago.
Yeah.
You know what was like background that a little bit. Like I'm assuming he was a member in Chicago. Obviously, I'm guessing. I don't. Was he known in Chicago? Like I don't really know his background at all.
Okay, so T. Rogers, rest in peace. Good family friend of mine. T. Rogers was a member of the Blackstone Rangers, which is shortened to the Black P Stone, right? So he moved out. Him and his family, I think they moved out. He had a name with the Stones because the Stones history with the Vice Lord history is a great read if you ever want to understand something. So the Black Stones are like, if we was talking just like street family, the Black Stones will be our first cousins.
Oh, that's the first hood.
No, the Black Stones be like our first cousins. Like they all identity and entity.
Before we go to the OG, because T. Rogers, my guy, rest his soul, and Lucky is my guy, rest his soul, his son. Yeah. How did the organizations come? Like, what's the order of?
What's the order?
And like Gangster disciples from over there too. Are they like the ops?
I'm gonna explain all that for y'all. I got you.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's some stuff we really don't know. And I felt myself Friday trying to explain to everybody LA, so it's dope. Go ahead.
So LA it's a whole different ball game from Chicago as far as the street selling, but it's similar in what they was trying to achieve. That makes sense.
Sure.
Okay, so like the Vice Lord is gonna be the oldest thing that was organized.
So this is what year we talk about roughly?
1957.
Wow.
But it got history before then.
Sure, then, like all this other. Yeah.
Then you got the Vice Lords. You still got the Cobras, which they wasn't Mickey Cobras at the time. They was the Cobras. Mm-hmm. They were started around that time too. And then you have we got the Cobras. Okay, so the disciples and the gangsters. That's what GD is and BD is right now. Those are two separate entities though. So and then you had the Blackstones. So the Blackstones.
So that's the order though. VLs on the major big games.
Major big game got the Vice Lords.
VLs is first. Then it's GDs or gangsters and disciples because they're different.
You got the Vice Lords. You got the Cobras.
Yep.
You got the Stones. Well, you got the disciples, then you got the Stones, and then you got the gangsters.
That's the order. Okay.
So it's just like, it's funny, like when I know the difference because half my family is from LA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I know like the gangster car in the neighborhood. It took me a long time to understand it, but it's kind of the same thing. But just imagine them got together. So like say the neighborhoods of the gangsters got together, right?
Sure.
That will be your version of the GDs.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
So give you a little brief rundown. The Vice Lords first, we come from the West Side. That organization was built in which I would call the YA, but we would call like the home or the kids' home, right?
Sure.
For protection when we got back outside on the streets to go against the older gangs. So like you was talking about the business.
Sure, the businessman avenues, chain, yeah. Okay.
So it was formed in St. Charles Correctional Center, 1957.
Wow. How old was the dude? Oh, he's a kid.
Yeah, teenagers. Long Live Pepperlo, which was the founder.
Ain't that crazy? Raymond and Craig and them 16 when they started Crips. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Good.
I'm just saying when you look at how it happens,
right?
It's dope. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
So on the West Side, what was going on? Because they, redlining just like they was doing that way. Yeah. So we was moving to the South Side, like I was speaking earlier, and then we had pockets on the West Side where it still was white, but the flight was coming out of it a little bit because they were just the areas they gave us. So we was fighting the areas against the whites that didn't want us to be over there. So that's how all that came together. Yeah. Same with the Stones.
Polacks.
Yeah. The same with the Blackstones. The Blackstones originated off of 64th. I'm gonna say 64th and Blackstone Avenue, which is a street.
That's the west of the south. That's the south.
South side. That's the southeast side. We call it the east side, but it's on the south side. So you got to think on the south side. The east side is.
Or it's like Long Beach.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. But yeah, they on the east side, close to the Stony Island over there. But yeah, they was birthed from right there, and same thing. They was going against it with the disciples, the east side disciples.
Oh, okay. So they were already there.
The east side, the east side disciples. You ain't even say gangsters, the east side disciples.
That's right, yeah.
So then, okay, we're gonna move to what the gangsters were supreme gangsters. They was formed to go against the disciples too as well, but they was gentlemen. They knew how to dress and they got their own story. But they come from like 68th and Green, which is Inglewood, that area, you know. And the gangsters, they was
Inglewood with an E, right?
Huh? With an E. With an E. Inglewood, yep. They got a And when I used to go to LA when I was younger and go to Inglewood, the alley just was different. So I'm like, this is crazy. But
and there's a Lawndale out there too, right?
Yeah, that's on my end. That's on the west side.
Yeah.
That's on the west. That's where the White Soil's birthday. Like when they came to the streets in the Lawndale community.
Gotcha.
16th and Lawndale Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So that's the birth. That's funny. And it's so dope when you know that, because it, like, you watch kids, right? Kids inspired to do something definitely out of necessity, but also out of a desire. I always think to myself, like, what if the older gangs embrace the kids so they didn't need to form something new? Because the VLs is formed, even if, none of the older homies, and when I say none of the older homies, I'm not just talking about my older homies, but none of the older homies in the culture, period, really want to talk about the relationship, because the real relationship that we should be talking about when we even talking about Crips is the relationship between Craig Munson and Raymond Washington. Because if that relationship is different, right, then they become baby avenues and they have guidance. Versus when, you have a 16-year-old person trying to create something that's going to end up becoming like worldwide, obviously like Vice Lords. It's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? So the Vice Lords forming because of needing to defend themselves, not only from white people that's around the community, but from another set of brothers, is crazy. You know what I mean? Versus the older brothers embracing them. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we were just talking about the tagging, same situation. And that could have been a situation where it was a war, because remember, these tagging crews, they're birthed right in these same communities. Like Troubles is birthed, to some degree, like where they at, they pretty much click with the Hoovers, the 5 Deuce Hoovers. But if they go to war with them, then it becomes something completely different. You know what I mean? If the Nutty Blocks go to war with the Raymond Street Hustlers because they exist in their community, it's different versus saying, hey, y'all got to be with us.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So that's a deep thought. To think kids started VLs, like, who is the person? I mean, I never really looked it up. Who is the person that's credited as a founder?
Pepolo.
Wow. And how long ago did he pass away?
The 70s.
It's crazy. Raymond passed away in 79.
But yeah, Pepolo, and then, I think it was built off of organization. Basically, it was built off of laws and understanding too. So that's the difference that I see. Sure. Yeah, like with super light, you gotta stand on law, you gotta know everything. Like, and that's the difference now that I see with the youngsters. Now they don't have to know nothing. It's nobody outside really to guide them. You know what I mean? Because the people took all them heads away. But when the people was outside and we was governing our own neighborhoods, it was a lot of stuff that was peaceful around. But you don't have that now. So everybody, it's no law. It's lawless outside.
Well, to defend, hold up, Pete, I'm sorry, but to defend the older person, because it's almost not fair, but back then, like I said, like Friday, my older homies, you know what I'm saying, that's how they made their living. It wasn't just as simple as, hey, I want to be over here because I want to be over it. Because, once you grow up, once you get into your 20s, you have kids, you get a girl, you got to pay some rent, you got to pay some bills.
Life is life.
Life is life. But back when I was growing up again, like I said, you start talking about the 7 through the 90s, through the 1990s, they all earned their living there. Not every last one, but most of them earned their living there. So it made sense for them to be there, 16 hours a day sometimes, because this is where they made their living. This is how they paid their bills. This is how they care for their family. You know what I'm saying? So while we didn't have the concept of like a written law or document, right? You knew how to behave. You were taught culturally how to behave because them older dudes was there to tell you how to be a man in this particular culture, in this particular lifestyle. But as soon as they removed the street drugs and the white folks took back over, the pharmacies took back over, you know what I'm saying? Then now the older homies got to go make their own living. And now you have a bunch of kids kind of stuck in it by themselves.
Mm-hmm. And try to make a way. And every generation and anything that you do in that life, everybody want their own type of shine that's different from the generation before type of shine. So it's just like you coupled up, you look up to your big homies and your chiefs and all that, but you want to make a name for yourself as well. That's a little bit different than their name, and that's everything and every Bob I ever seen. Every generation is different, but back, on our end, it was saying that we had to learn, like you just couldn't just come, and the vice lords was similar. It's, how like you got all these different crip sets.
Mm-hmm.
We got different.
Yeah, I met different people from VL.
Yeah, different. We just use the last name, just like y'all use the last name, right? Yeah. But the literature is all the same. That's the crazy part. So it was like, man, you had to know all of that. You knew how to move because, like, just say for instance, right? I'm over here on this block getting money, right? The block next to me got relationship with my chief, but they might be folks. They might be, GDs over here, right? I'm not finna go in there and bother them brothers because I don't know what type of situation my chief and they general got put together to get some money elsewhere.
Even though your communities may be feuding to some degree.
Right, and that's the difference with us on the west side. We're gonna respect each other because we're getting money, right? Sure. And the war only gonna come when somebody playing with the money on the west side. Sure. Not we ain't talking about today, we're talking about back in my era. But back in the, like, say we're gonna use the south side, they're gonna kick it off. So just like, like we get money different than they do out there. Okay, so out there, they're gonna be with it. So just say, for instance, how y'all say the sex tripping and all that.
Yeah.
You gonna have that out south. Like back in my time, you might have 50 GDs, 100 GDs waiting at the train station, waiting on anything that's out of pocket, like from my end or from their oppositions and they end, just come out there and they finna get to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus my way where we own it. If this right here is not the way it needs to be in my area, right? We own it.
That hat broke off stuff is crazy. It's so deep, it makes sense. Yeah.
Man, I'm so used to breaking my hat to the left. I had to just start wearing my hat straight. Like I'm just a part of the uniform every day, right? But this right here gets you.
But it blow me away, Rick, that people make this so unique to us. And I'm like, no, everybody, everywhere I've been, they got their own way of doing something. And it's to let everybody know this is what I do. This is who I am. But for some reason, I think because we have Hollywood, you know what I mean? Like people really feel like they got it covered. And I'm like, bro, it's so much gray area in this conversation.
We can name LA, culture movies that went big. I can't name any.
You know what I mean? And but that's because we have Hollywood.
Well, I'm supporting your point. Yeah.
So that's why people feel so like I try to tell people, like, yeah, Chicago is definitely to me a little bit more literature based, but that's also because they're a lot closer to the East, and them brothers is a lot more mindful of what you need to know. Like you go to New York, they'll fire your shit up about the lessons. That's a street thing. That's a gangster thing. People don't believe that 5% of that, mine is what they call themselves. yeah, you have a real problem playing with them people in the information. And Chicago has that versus ours, where it's more just past, like this is behavior. And there is no specific rule. I was telling somebody this. There is no specific rules. You know what I'm saying? There are no specific rules. It's like you just kind of like there are some morally unethical things. Like, right, you could not be, let's say, like a sexual assaultist in the community. Like if people knew that, you're going to have a bad problem because people's sisters. You can't be like a purse snatcher in the community. Like you would have a problem because if you snatch somebody's grandmother's purse, like some of these things kind of come off. So it's just dope to watch how it did. Question. So what year would you say that the Gangsters and the Disciples came together? What year is that to create what we would call SGD, right?
From the history that I know, rest in peace to one of my godfathers, Melvin Haywood, which was like one of the second in command for the Disciples, for the Gangsters and the Disciples, 1969.
Wow. So that's right when Crips started. So that's at that time.
1969, what was going on, the Blackstones was going crazy on the numbers, like crazy. A lot of y'all look into them too.
Sure.
Yeah. The Blackstones, man, was going bananas.
So let me ask you a question. The BD, is that a mix between Disciples and Blackstones?
So the Blackstones is on entity. At the time, the Disciples was going crazy with the numbers, right? So the pressure was coming down on the Gangsters and it was coming down on the Stones, but the Stones numbers was going so crazy. You got to think the Gangsters had to fight both. You know what I mean? But the Disciples just was closer to them in the area. So from what I learned is Jeff Fort, which is free Jeff, which was the leader, right? He was trying to absorb them.
Wait. You said free Jeff?
Jeff
you
Fort.
Mean you mean that as a rep, like he's incarcerated still to this day?
Yeah, been incarcerated since 1986 or something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I mean interrupt.
No, Jeff Fort, they was doing they 1-2, man. You know, and they was trying to put what they was doing. They was absorbing a whole bunch of smaller little mobs and bringing them on in there.
Sure.
And
you feel that led to some stability in the city, like the anti-power vacuum principle
on that end of town, because you got to think on that end of town.
Sure.
Yeah, because they like everything, like the Stones, the GDs, and the BDs. They strong hints on the south side. So that's where they originate from. That's their area. The west side gonna be 99.9% us, and we got gangsters and everything else over there too. But that's our area.
So the disciples and the gangsters created GD. But how
exactly.
did GD is a separation of GD then at that point?
Nah, the gangsters is the supreme gangsters.
Sure.
That's Larry Hoover.
Sure.
Free Larry, man.
Oh, that.
Yeah,
I know his
tons.
Yeah.
And the disciples was David Barksdale, which is the
heard of him. Yeah. No.
Okay. So the Black Disciples was the Black Disciples before.
Oh, before the gangsters and disciples came together.
BGD when they joined together. Black Gangster Disciple.
Okay, I do remember that when I was younger.
Yeah.
So that don't exist anymore because they fell out. Okay.
Once David, rest in peace, passed, the power went crazy. So I guess, that's when they separation came about. But it's still a lot of brothers that I know right now, older brothers that I talk with all the time. It's still one love, meaning they still got love for each other. It just when the power structure is fractured, it get different outside.
Shout out to Lawrence Freeman. You also have to take into account. You also have to take into account the Italian and Irish mobs have a strong influence in Chicago, so that also influenced our city. Yeah. But that's the same for us when it comes to the Chicano gangs.
Right?
Sure.
No. Let me explain what he's saying. Appreciate that, Lawrence. And that's why I was getting to.
Okay.
The Italian Mafia, Chicago is a mob city. So like if you watch any mob movie,
Sure, they in Chicago.
the Chicago, every ethnic group moved in that manner. So meaning like everything is mobbed out. What I mean mobbed out, meaning like it's order, it's you can't go over here and sell a cigarette because these people areas, you need to talk to these people. Now you're not gonna take this over. So imagine all that going on from the Al Capone days on down. The whole city is structured and was corrupt.
Yeah.
In separate manners.
It's different when it's just white folks. Go ahead.
Now, it's interesting, like talking about like the age of people from earlier on. I think off memory, like the Lucky Luciano five family structure, like they were wild in their mid-late teens when a lot of that organized in New York. And I think Lucky Luciano was like some 22 some years old when they actually parceled that out into 5 separate areas. So it is interesting, like the parallels between like, I think your risk tolerance at a certain age is like such that you'll kind of do whatever. You feel a little bit of invincibility as a teenager, to some degree. But one thing, like, and I understand like the lack of system trust in place, like vis-a-vis black gangs to Italian or Irish gangs. But something that I noticed over like just looking backwards at 100 years of history, the willingness of like Irish and Italian, racketeers of sorts to just bribe out the police and get them to go away versus like not quite as much in like black gangs in Chicago and New York, just saying like, we're just going to, you want to come over here and try to pinch us. We're just going to corrupt you and put you on the payroll. Does that kind of thing happen so much or not so much? I understand why it wouldn't, but like, what's your kind of both of your guys' opinion on that particular?
The Irish had a lot to do in Chicago too. Like every Polish, it's like you gotta think Chicago's like LA. Chicago got every nationality in there. Everyone, everybody got their own community. Everybody controlled and protected their own communities.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that is coming from that. And then you put the Al Capone Italian Mafia thing on it. Then it get deeper. It just was New York. New York was more. It was more spoken out about the New York people. But Chicago got a super history of where you think the movie Goodfellas come from?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Casino.
Yeah.
I mean, to take that back, Casino.
Yeah.
Casino was based off us, some people in Chicago.
No, you ain't got to tell me. I tell people all the time when I talk about this hip hop thing and street urban culture and how the streets are like influenced by all kind of streets. Like it don't matter which kind it is, long as it's street.
I think like kind of more specific, like what I've asked. Like you look at, like say the movie American Gangster about Frank Lucas, right?
Sure.
Uh-huh.
So in the same frame, you have the Italian dude who's not paying attention to the IRS, but he's breaking off the police department.
Exactly.
Then they confront Frank Lucas, and he blows up their car. Like, is there a history of a relationship in Chicago where any of those entities are paying off, like just buying outright police protection in their area versus, or is it like you have Irish and Italians in other areas buying off police to go get after them, or all the above?
All you could think of, all the above. All the above.
Yeah. Shout out to Ronald Green Jr. They created the RICO Act to stop black people from moving organized across the state lines or that line. Jack Johnson was the first person to fall under a RICO law, even though the mafia existed. That's not true. I get the federal law part. That I think you're saying federal laws in general.
There was some sort of, I forgot what it was called. There was like some sort of
Mann
state.
Act.
Yeah,
that's actually what they did to R. Kelly, which is kind of why I've been upset a lot. Like, why the fuck will we be standing? But again, I'm starting to realize
he's one man.
Bro, it's like this weird shit where black people only want to be black when they think is I don't know. I talked about it on the stream the other day. Shout out to my people, Black Opinions Matter. Y'all go check it out. It's a really great podcast. And I was complaining about 50 Cent, something he was doing, and I was telling people, like, I hate how when that camera comes on, he talking about Puff. You know what I mean? Like, that shit drives me. Or when the Jay-Z shit, it's like jokes. It's like, you know what I mean? Like 50 mean too much to me in the streets for him to be behaving like that. Like, you too rich. I can't stand that. Like, never side with these crackers. I don't care whatever is happening. Like, I can't, you know what I mean? I don't care what's going on. And I was saying that I didn't like it. And somebody was saying that to me in the comments. They were saying, nah, Glasses, well, I was complaining about how Puff and R. Kelly was being treated. And I'm like, look, charge R. Kelly for his crimes. Charge Puff Daddy for his crimes. Charge people for their crimes. But when you take those opportunities and we watch them lynch a brother economically, because that's what they doing. They lynching them economically. Like Puff or R. Kelly got charged for the same crime they charged Jack Johnson with to be able to ramp up his time. That's important to me. I'm not saying do I think what he did is acceptable. Charging for what he did. You know what I mean? That's fair because you would do it to your people, and it's my job to make sure you do it by my people the same way. But people confuse like, oh, when they're like morally out of the wheelhouse of what you believe in, you know what I'm saying? Then it's like, well, whatever they do to them is cool. Nah, nigga, it ain't cool. It ain't cool. So I was saying that to the point I think Ron is talking about, which is like the Mann Act. The Mann Act is what they charged Jack Johnson with when he was taking white women across state line. They made that law for him. The RICO is more like 1970s. That was late.
It seemed like that was still like the ink was barely dry on the language of that when Giuliani started applying it. Like it was very, very new legislation.
Yeah. But I get what he's saying. He's talking about federal charges to hinder brothers. And even when we talk, I remember when I first learned about the RICO charge, I knew that eventually they would charge, even though everybody knows gangs are not truly organized. Even the most organized are not organized to that degree because we still brothers. And there's certain things we just not going to be able to, like, I get the concept in organization when it comes to like Al Capone. They white people, so they people going to be in different positions. They're going to have a different way that they can move about the cabin and everything. Like right now, let's say if you're a Mexican, you're part of the Mexican mafia, or, you know, now they're infiltrating these places and they're going to have a certain play, but we was always going to be kept on the outside.
And I think that people just misinterpret the meaning of the word organized in that legal context. It means that you're creating an organization to launder and obscure culpability. So you're therefore then indicting the organization to get an illumination of the culpability that it is laundering. It's not that these guys are organized and these guys are a shit throw.
Exactly.
Right. And what they use it, they using all of the artillery that they have to like cut and paste and put it all together to make you think that's what it is, but it's not.
No.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's
what's going on now.
That's what's pissed me off, like with the R. Kelly thing, which Ron brings it up with R. Kelly. That's not to say, again, that nobody should have to say that they don't agree with laws, or that's not the point. But for damn sure, it shouldn't be no Mann Act. For damn sure, it shouldn't be a racketeering charge. This is dumb. But again, because brothers right now are in this weird space to where they want to look like they righteous with white people, which, forgive me, Pete, like that ain't the system. Yeah, because you're not the system. I'm sorry, you on the outside. But that ain't the system. You know what I'm saying? Like, nigga, that ain't the system. You know what I mean? They're not like, so to watch him get charged with a RICO charge, right? That happened to R. Kelly. He's like a racketeering charge.
It would
and
be
a Mann Act.
For that to apply to R. Kelly, in my opinion, would be as if he was creating music tours and having background dancers of 14-year-olds that he was purely creating the tour to obscure the fact that he was moving them all around to fuck them and hold them in financial custody.
That would make sense.
That
would be like, oh, I get the racketeering charge.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But like,
and you created R. Kelly Productions Inc. to do
so
it.
Morally, oh, you know what? Like, whatever they do to R. Kelly. Like, I was telling this dude in the comments on that post, I'm like, man, I wouldn't let my worst enemy get jumped by the KKK. Like, whoever that person is, like, I don't care, it's whatever community they from. If they look like me or come from where I come from, I'm not letting the KKK punch on them. You know what I'm saying? But it's this weird space now where the brothers grew up feeling like, oh, well, anything that happened to my enemy is good. Like, nah, you a coward. If you not doing it to him, then I wouldn't even celebrate it. That's just where I come from as a man. You know what I'm saying? So to watch people like, and even 50, this is somebody I really respect that I think the world of, because I know what he been through. I know his struggle. I seen it. I read it, and I just know what it's like. And to watch him overcome it and still get up there and act like that shit fucking irritates me, because you know what jail is like. I don't care how much, I would rather kick a nigga ass than watch them people put him in jail. You know what I'm saying? Because, and then how they doing it unfairly. Again, Puff is another person being charged with a racketeering act as a solo individual. These are unprecedented times that nobody's saying nothing about. Look at the charges. And I don't care if you don't like that he got into a fight with his old lady or he punched on his old lady. Still make them charge him with that. Why is he being charged with a racketeering charge? Why is R. Kelly, as a solo individual, being charged with a racketeering charge? Why is R. Kelly being charged with the Mann Act? That was a racist law when they said it back when Jack Johnson did it. So why would you do it now? But nobody looking at it because, again, they want to have this moral, upstanding persona publicly, and I'm just not with that.
And that's the state of the whole political conversation writ large right now is, oh, well, if you don't support this specific thing, then you must be in favor of child rape or whatever that, like, it's always that. It's just a stupid binary to obscure the details. Otherwise, you are a supporter of the greatest, sin you could think of.
Sure.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's crazy. So the BDs were there, and then the gangsters and the disciples.
Well, no. The BDs are the disciples.
The BDs. So wait a minute. So the disciples and the BDs, they're two different factions.
That's the same thing. I say disciple, but they was black disciples.
So it was black gangster disciples. No? Are they? Oh, okay.
Black disciple. Shout out to my man. I seen him on here. He's from the Freeman family. They real big in the black disciple community. He just said something on here, but shout out to him. The black disciples was their own entity, which is I said the
already.
Disciples.
Yeah.
Gotcha. The gangsters was the supreme gangsters. That's Larry Hoover's.
That's right. Yeah.
So when they merged together, you got
some of the people did merge.
When they merged, because they were successful with their merger.
Yeah.
It became, which was Black Disciple, and then you got the Supreme Gangsters. They took off the Supreme, left the Gangster, and went with the Black Gangster Disciples.
Gotcha.
So at that point, some BDs didn't go, and that's why we still have BDs, or are they considered the same still?
I really consider the same, but with any merger, you still gonna have your doubters in the background.
Niggas like, no, I'm not fucking with them niggas.
Yeah, but they superiors was like, this is what we own. If y'all ain't on this.
That happened to a degree. That's happening in LA a lot. A lot of different gangs are kind of they becoming neighborhoods.
Okay.
So like a Menlo. Like a Menlo, my whole life growing up was a gangster Crip gang.
Okay.
But something happened and Menlo's became neighborhood Menlo. So that's where you see people saying rolling 70s, neighborhood Menlo. So again, this is happened to a few different gangs. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a lot of gangs to this degree that are joining, I guess we could reference it as a chapter or putting themselves in what we call the neighborhood car.
Yeah, sure.
So, man, that's deep. It's crazy how it all responds the exact same way, the same poverty and oppression, and we literally create the same things without even knowing.
Human behavior is a standard.
Look, the crazy part about it.
Yeah.
These all brilliant young guys, right?
Yeah.
And all of the mobs I named was doing something in the community for their community. They had their own community centers. They had their own outreach programs. They had their own feeding operations.
Sure.
Not Black Panthers, these organizations.
Wow.
At that time.
I got another question real quick. Well, unless you want to cover this real fast.
Shout out to EP. Yo, Glass, did you know the BDs put out Cha Cha Slide? I had no idea, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I believe it, man.
They sure did. I can't think of that gentleman now. He's doing some time right now, but yeah, he definitely was his money. Marvell Thompson, them. Yeah, a bunch of them. Yep.
That makes sense though. I mean, you got to think that Midwest and blackness and the things that they were doing in the music industry. I'm sure a lot of them brothers was already up on it and making it happen.
Yeah. I was going to ask real quick, like, out of LA, you know, outward, obviously, there's Blood and Crip neighborhoods and different towns or whatever.
Right.
Chicago had kind of the same thing as some of the adjacent cities. Like there was some of that in St. Louis, Memphis, and all that kind of thing. Can you go on that a little bit?
Yeah. So like, I give y'all one history and one fact that y'all can move on. Chicago, like one of the only cities that Bloods and Crips are not in.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. One thing about Chicago, we might
Oakland,
feud against each other.
neither. Oakland neither.
Yeah. Nothing new gonna come in here. It's gonna be what's in here.
Sure.
But we're gonna embrace everybody. Like you can come, but
sure.
Other cities that's close to us, you say like Gary is just like going to shit.
Chicago.
Gary like going to Carson.
Gary like San Pedro or something. Gary's like Ghost Town, or what's it called?
You got Minneapolis
City.
You got Minneapolis, St.
Minneapolis
Paul,
got
you got
both.
Milwaukee. All this stuff is
they got both.
Yeah.
Milwaukee
got both.
Milwaukee.
Right?
Do Milwaukee got both? I don't.
Yeah. Now that's the crazy part. So when you get out of Illinois, Illinois, the only big thing in Illinois is Chicago. Everything else is like rural, and down south is when you go south.
Sure.
We at the top, but like you get to Milwaukee, you're gonna have majority of what we got now. It might be a little influx of something that came in from somewhere else and they done built something, but it's gonna be majority Chicago.
Sure. Yeah.
But
my boy
you get to go on the other way, like back east, like Indianapolis is gonna be the same way, but then you might have, you're gonna have some stuff that they came in that's more West Coast a little bit too. St. Louis is a great example of it. St. Louis is like my second home. Shout out to my people out there. Now East St. Louis is gonna be like Chicago. Now East St. Louis and St. Louis don't fool with each other.
Yeah, they different.
And East St. Louis is very small. So East St. Louis is you're gonna have your Vice Lords and GDs over there. You're gonna have some Bloods and Crips just because it's gonna come with the landscape. St. Louis is right across the bridge, which is Missouri.
Sure.
So when St. Louis is set up like this. St. Louis, when I first started going out there, was always like a West Coast influence. More LA, more the Bay.
So St. Louis, which is crazy when you think about it. Like when it comes to Missouri, St. Louis, and Los Angeles, that's like our brother sister. That's like our brother city. But then when you go to Kansas City, that's the Bay's brother city.
Yeah. Okay, you know how like the Bay is. And I got family everywhere. I got family in KC. Yeah.
Sure.
So KC is that's San Francisco, Oakland, all in one.
Yeah.
All that. But St. Louis is LA, and the reason why a lot of the LA guys, back in the time when it was hot in LA, it's it's too much out here. Let's move it around the country. St. Louis was one of the hubs, and what's different about them now, they got their own identity on top of the LA guys.
Yeah, it's not. It is like you can see it, but it's done in a St. Louis way.
It's done in a way. Yeah, that's
that's how it's supposed to be, though.
Yeah, it's done in a way, and they stand on it. And they stand on. I give it to them out there. I love that,
but that's what it's supposed to be. Like the land is supposed to, like, it's one thing like being a part of a brand, but the land gotta affect it. You know what I mean? It's same in hip hop. It's like when I watch a brother that the land don't affect what's coming out his mouth or the sounds that he's rapping on. When the land don't do it, like when everything you're doing is about listening and not feeling, the environment around. Go ahead, Pete. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say it's interesting, like the dynamic. Like there's three like parallel examples to me, like geographically, that are not that dissimilar. The relationship between St. Louis and East St. Louis, Chicago and Gary, and Philly and Camden. So like the difference between like culturally the street level between St. Louis and East St. Louis is stark, but between Chicago and Gary, small town, other side of an adjacent state line, not quite so stark a difference there.
Right. And they different. Another place that's kind of got everything in it, but you wouldn't know it. Detroit. So Detroit got a lot of us in there. They got a lot of LA in there.
Yeah.
So that was different. Another Midwest city, I gave Minnesota. Okay, so like when you get to doing the Oklahoma cities, that's more LA.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's more LA. Then you like, and what's crazy? So if they do have like cities like that, if they do have some stuff in there, it's gonna be majority of the GDs. Like a lot of places just got GDs. And what I don't like personally, and I get what y'all saying, like you were saying, like the land, you know, it's supposed to mimic what they
supposed to affect it. Yeah.
Yeah. What I don't like, what I say Chicago-based thing is this sometimes. What I don't care for, because it ain't out in my control. So like, say for instance, I'll just say if I'm a GD. Now in the city I'm in now, just say the GDs is the Bloods and Crips really the dominant there, right?
Sure.
But I get to doing things out of their catalog, meaning like I'm gonna start tagging how they do. I'm gonna start trying to assess myself as one of them, which it's totally different. Meaning like what I mean by that, just say for instance, if they don't have no opposition to fight, they're gonna fight what's in front of them, right? So they're gonna act similar to them. Meaning like when I say tagging, like I see like a lot of confusion come because I've been everywhere. Say like I'm in the country in Arkansas somewhere, right? And the brothers that's GDs might not got down there to update them on what's going on currently in the city of Chicago, what's going on in their mob, right? Mm-hmm. And they might be stuck in old ways, and now you got people down there kind of mixing the Blood Crip with this.
Sure.
So they confused. So when they get to want to really know their history, come to Chicago, you're not looking right.
But that happens here though. That happened in Southern California. Like there's cliques that house all kind of gangs. If that makes sense. Like it's a big one called No Love in the Inland Empire. And they some shit, you know what I mean? But they house it's like the Masons. All you got to do is belong to a gang and you could be a part of the clique. But they're kind of different.
Like Fresno area too.
I don't know. No Love is big, but like 40 Glock is from No Love. You know what I mean? So like he's a part of I don't know if he's a part of the clique, but I know he know the clique. So it's like, it's weird. Like, you know, if I had to have some critique when something leaves California, I don't like that. I don't like that people feel like they have to beef with the same people here.
Sure.
Right. So like if you from neighborhood in New York and you a gangster in New York, y'all don't have to fight.
Okay. I like that.
So I don't like that. But again, obviously I'm not from neighborhood. Like you said, I'm not from there, so I can't change it. But I never liked that. Like, trust me, the thing about living, you know, a street urban lifestyle, you're going to create enemies. You don't have to take on old enemies. You keep doing this shit, you know, people not gonna like you. So it's one of those things where, like, I always felt like when I would go there and people would say like disrespectful words, I'm like, that's not the culture. Like the culture ain't the culture is not the experience. You know what I mean? The culture is how you treat your people, how you talk to your people. It ain't really the outsiders. So to me, when I go there, sometimes I feel like the people to me that's really on some, that's from A-Trade, that's in New York, they got a really big card out there, and they some solid lokes that they have like an attitude with the neighborhoods, and it's like, these are strangers. That's not like, that thing is real that's happening over there, like on the west side of LA with the neighborhoods and the gangsters. That's real. That's like real problem. They didn't wake up one day, it was like, we don't like them guys. And
like a franchise beef.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean?
I know about that one because I got, you know, my family from out there, but I got friends, you know, I met years ago. I didn't know, like, some of my best friends, I didn't know what that, you know, I didn't really understand the magnitude.
You didn't know it was an extra step.
Right.
It got worse over the time, man. It wasn't really as bad. Like, you knew that everybody was falling under a chapter, but it wasn't like that. Now it's actually rampant. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you won't even, like growing up when I'm gang banging, man, I'm from 7th Street Watts, and they're gonna tell me, oh, I'm from 60 Crip, or I'm from 40 Crip, or I'm from, I'm from 30 Crip, like I'm from 111. Now you won't even know where a nigga from. You could be talking to a nigga for like 20 minutes, and he be like on hood, on neighborhood, and like he never actually, and to me, like it's different, but I respect it because they're figuring out a way to bring more people. If you could bring people together, do your thing. But it is unique because now I don't quite know where the person's from. And again, because I know the nuance of what's happening, I'm thinking like I gotta hit you up. Like, where you from? I'm from neighborhood. No, where are you from? Like, not what chapter you fall under. Like, where are you? Who am I talking to? Like, where's your area? Where's your community? So it is crazy to watch it change. But as it escapes LA, that's the thing I feel like I wish people didn't take with them. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to take that part. As soon as you start doing your thing, you're gonna make your own fucking enemies, man. They're gonna be right. You're gonna have your own problems. You don't need to bring our problems to your world. It's one thing taking, we sharing a brand. We all brothers. We could all share brands, but you don't got to take this part. Like, you know what I mean? That ain't part of what it's like to be from where we from. You know what I mean? These things come with real situations. So to me, it makes it look a little cheesy. Like, this is what it's about. Like, being a real neighborhood Crip is like, oh, I beef with gangsters. That's not, again, from the outside, because I'm not from neighborhood. I'm from 7th Street Watts Crip. But it's a difference when you think that's what being a neighborhood is about. It's like, oh, I don't get along with gangsters. That is not. Them dudes do a lot more fly shit together. They really partners. They really grow up a certain way. They talk a certain way. They act a certain way. Learn all these other things versus you just got put on this gang 2 days ago and now you whacking out G's. They ain't did nothing to you. You don't even know them. Trust me, you represent that in front of them. They gonna give you a reason to cross out a G if that's what you want to do. So I hate that mentality. Even right here, where a lot of young dudes who don't, they immigrants to the communities that they want to belong to. They immigrants. They didn't grow up in the community. They immigrants. You feel me? But they feel like, oh, if I'm from 60, that means I hate A-Trays. That's not what that means. Really, it's supposed to mean you from 60s because these are the guys you want a fellowship with. These are your friends. It don't mean that these, and to me, that's where the movies do a lot of work. Because most people, if you really a real 6-0, if you really grew up in 6-0, not like the whole side of it, because it's huge. 6-0 is like a huge community. Huge.
Yeah, it is.
Huge, like just huge. But if you grew up in the front, you know what I mean? Like you an AG nigga, you grew up in the front, you know what I'm saying? Or you grew in the ass, you have a friend that's A-Tray. And that's what's not being said outside of that's the gray area that's not being spoken about. Rest assured, Big U has friends from A-Tray. They're his friends. He's been knowing since they were little kids. Go look at Pretty Boy or go look at, there's different interviews. Shout out to the homie Kev Mack, who does these great documentary pieces on this. Go look at them older guys, how they talk about who you would think is a rival. Listen to the reverence they speak on them about. Listen to the reverence they speak when they speak about them. Look at how they talk about Monster Cody. That is not like, this is not like, you know what I mean? Like it's more to it. And that's the thing that will bother me about like what's happening today.
Are you saying that the elementary schools and the churches don't define who attends based off of the gang lines? You're telling me that came second? That you telling me?
Yeah, they definitely go to the same elementary.
I thought LAUSD was working around you guys. No,
You're so ignorant, dog. You're so fucking ignorant.
It's the same with us too. It's the same. Like I go somewhere, back just traveling, getting some money, right? And I might encounter some GDs or some GDs that might be from whatever town they in, but they never encountered none of us. They dealt with everything else. So again, they might come with the disrespectful, or they might feel like they need to be disrespectful. That's the part I don't like either. But a lot of times what I used to do, I used to just really put them on game because I'm plugged in with a lot of people. I'm like, Barry, go holler at this person right here. Yeah, they're gonna get you right. For education wise, because you
don't quite get you're a little off. You're a little off with
and anything coming out of my city, just like you, we want it to be right. You know what I mean? We just want them to understand their history and understand that it's way more than what
Oh
they.
man, it's so it's so service, and that's what killed me, and that's why I kind of spend time where people think like this is a promo for gangs, and I'm like, no, this is clarity in a life you don't understand. I don't want you to look at other brothers and think they ignorant. It's way more nuance. It's way more gray area that's not being spoken about. You know what I'm saying? So again, it get worse and worse. But I gotta get up out of it. We gotta get out of here. No Sinners Live.
Let's do this soon
Rick,
again.
we're gonna bring you on a regular pod.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, let's do
This
that.
has been a regular pod.
Hey, and I need both you guys on my show. I got my show.
It's an honor.
It's gonna premiere. It's called Black Sheep Talk. And this is exactly what we're talking about.
We're gonna do it right now. We're gonna get to it. We ain't gonna waste no time. We're gonna do it next week so we can act like we got some sense. No Sinners Live, the lunch hour, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, noon Pacific Standard Time. We'll be back here noon Pacific Standard Time. Make sure y'all check out the podcast releasing tomorrow on iHeart Podcast, Apple Podcast, or anywhere you get your podcast. The No Ceilings Podcast, new episode dropping tomorrow. Executive produced by Charlemagne the Guy, the Black Effect Network, iHeart. We love y'all. We out of here.